Okay, guys, let's go through a review for our exponential functions. So you can see on the page I have right here that there are really 4 different functions, and there is one basic function at the top here. From our discussion on Friday, we talked about the fact that this is a parent function. In other words, it's what the other functions are based on. And so we have to look at how it's shifting and what's happening. And so if I look at each of these, I want to look at where other numbers are added besides this part that's 4 to the x. So if I look on this next one, I can see that the only thing that's really added is something that is up there with the x. So remember, as we talked about on Friday, that if it's inside those parentheses with the exponent, that means that it is a shift on the x-axis. If that's positive 3, remember we say it's got to be the opposite. So it's got to get shifted negative 3. Now that means that on this one, it would have to go left 3. If I look at the next one, same kind of thing. This piece that's up in the top here is just with the exponent. So if it is inside the parentheses with the exponent, that means it's going to be a shift on the x-axis. And if it's negative 5, that means it gets shifted positive 5, which means it goes to the right 5. Okay, the one part I didn't talk about with those is the horizontal asymptote, that imaginary line that it can't touch. And here's the deal. If it moves left or right, then that means that horizontal asymptote is not going to change. So it's going to stay at y equals 0, which is basically the x-axis. And the same is going to be true for this one. So remember, if we move left or right, then your horizontal asymptote stays at y equals 0. Now, for these 2 that are down here, these are really on the end of our equation that we have, which means that it's not in the exponent where the x is at. So if it is on the end, then it has to be a shift on the y-axis. And as we have said before, the y doesn't lie. The way that y happens is what happens. So if it's negative 2, then that means it gets shifted down 2. On the one that is next to it, because again, this is on the end, which means that it's a shift on the y-axis. So if it's positive 1, that means it goes up 1. Now here's the other piece you need to know. This also tells you where your horizontal asymptote is going to be. So your horizontal asymptote, if that's negative 2, is going to go to y equals negative 2. On this one, if it's plus 1, then that means your horizontal asymptote is going to be at y equals 1. So that's something you should be able to do after our conversation on Friday. Now, I wanted to show you one that is kind of a combination, because this has really 2 different things that are going on. I can see this part up here. That part, remember, tells us that it's a shift on the x-axis because it is up with the exponent. And if it's negative 3, we know it's got to be opposite, so it's going to be positive 3. So that means it's going to go to the right 3. Now this tells me that it's also going to shift on the y-axis. And if it's plus 5, remember the y doesn't lie. So if it's plus 5, then that means it's going to go up 5. Okay, remember as well that this is going to tell you that your horizontal asymptote is at y equals positive 5. Okay, now go over your other stuff that we did on Friday, and this will be on your assessment tomorrow or your practice tomorrow.